Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs POSTGAME Podcast, and the Cubs have lost a series to your Milwaukee Brewers. Womp, womp, 3-2, Milwaukee at Wrigley Field. Brewers extend their lead over the Cubs and probably some other teams in division. Cubs still in last place. And if you're one of those people that say, well, they're still in it in the wild card race, I tell you, it's over. It's all over. Luke Stuckmeyer, Jared Willis, Kevin Wells, Cody Delmendo, and Joey running the ones and twos. Thanks to everybody that was part of our live watching along. We had fun. You know, we started at 1:20, hung out, watched the whole game here on YouTube. Everybody was disappointed together. We had some blue moons. I had a C4. We had some pizza. Bottom line is, once again, zero offense. Zero offense.
No. They scored 2 runs today. They even hit a homer.
I stand corrected. They
even hit a homer.
They scored 2 runs.
It's more than yesterday.
I mean, there was no offense against the Diamondbacks, and there's no offense against the Brewers. And everything you hoped that was happening out of that Orioles series and the Cardinals series before the break, I don't think the All-Star break shut it off, but I did say to you, Cody, I was like, well, I don't love the timing of this, even though I don't think it really matters anyways. I think that was a mirage in the desert.
Yeah, even teams that are not very good, that struggle to score, are still going to put together stretches where they look like a competent offense, and maybe that's just what we saw going into the All-Star break, because the most consistent thing that the Cubs have done this season is exactly like what we saw today. Struggling to score in general, but really struggling with, like, we get runners on base, but then don't have the batters in the lineup who can, whether it's hitting for power to score those runs, or as Bob Brenly used to say, like, keep the line moving. Like, you don't really have much of either of that. So getting that runner on second, or even second and third like they had, I forget already what inning that was, but that's been their chief issue all year. If you wanted to nail down one aspect of the team that needs the most help, for me, it's easy. It's that.
Yeah, Nico struggled today. He came up with 2 guys on second and third there. I believe that was, I want to say, the 4th or the 5th inning. And then he came up again with Miles on after Miles stole a base and got over to third on the error. Couldn't get him in. So twice today that you saw Nico kind of falter at the plate and not hit the ball very hard. And it's not just him, though. I mean, it is the entirety of the team. I mean, it is the pinch hitters you saw last night couldn't get the job done. Dansby Swanson couldn't get the job done in the 9th inning again. Swung and missed at a couple of fastballs that were right there. It's all a problem. If I forget who said that. I forget what Chicago coach said that. Oh, it was I don't remember. It was some Bears coach who said that. I think it might have been Nagy. It's all a problem. No, it was John Fox. The whole thing is a problem. I don't know if they are going to – they're not going to fix it this year. The ending of this game really cemented in what this team is. They are going to be sellers. They needed this series. You really needed these last 2. You didn't get either one. It's over. This season is about now trying to resurrect certain guys, try and trade certain guys off, and really look forward to next year. And it really sucks sitting here having to say that, but that's where they are now. That's who this team is. It's done. It's over. Officially.
I'm not out yet. But I'm not. I'm also.
Somebody
like,
get a water bottle and spray him in the face.
You said you're still not out.
I'm not. Well, okay, this is what I mean. Like, I'm not saying they should be buyers. I'm not saying that. I agree that they should sell off something. Sell off all the relievers. magically turned into really good value after 2 months of not being good as a whole bullpen, whatever. I guess the reason that I'm not out on the season, I guess, is just like I would love to see them get aggressive with their internally. And who knows, maybe it sparks something. That's the only reason that I have any hope.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. If everything that they say that you know, how they want to build the team and all of that, if they're so confident in that, and if that and it, you know, some guys come up and help spark the offense or whatever, like, who knows? There's still 2 months. You're still right there in the wild card race. But again, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say that
they're going all the way.
No, I'm not.
Godfather says, "Are you drunk, Cody? Get real." Who's the guy I'm thinking of? The former Cardinal for the White Sox that slapped Jock Jones in the outfield.
Tommy Pham.
Tommy Pham.
Yeah.
We need Tommy Pham to come in studio right now. Walk up to Cody.
Listen, man. Listen.
I don't encourage that.
We've seen crazier things, and when we were on the watch. Don't fucking laugh at me, all right? Don't fucking laugh at me.
If they okay,
I listen to you guys.
You're right. I'm
bitch
not
and
telling you how
moan
to
about
do it.
me bitching and moaning all the time. Let me say what I want to say, all right?
You say it.
Okay.
Even he doesn't believe this.
No,
That's the funniest part about the whole thing. He's trying to make himself believe it as he's saying, and then he starts giggling. He's like, "I don't believe this at all."
All I'm saying is that there will be reasons to want to watch the team after the deadline, because if they move some of the relievers, if they do find a way to move Horner, if they do find a way to move Tyone, some guys they're going to promote guys. There's players that we've been talking about for months about wanting to see. I don't know what they're going to do, but, you know, they'll probably be more interesting to watch than what we've been watching. So in turn, in my head, I'm like, well, if it becomes more interesting than what I've already been watching, and it actually leads to some success, well, then maybe they win some more games. I don't know.
Yeah, and
that's all I'm saying. I'm not even saying that I'm out or that I'm still in on them making the playoffs or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm not out on the year. You said that you're out on the entire season. To me, there's still things to be interested about this year. There is like 5% of me that's like, you know, again, we have seen crazier things, but
let me rephrase that real quick then before we get to the next thing. I am out on this team being a playoff team and a contending team. They have shown me enough.
I've been out on them on being a contending team, but that doesn't
I'm not
mean
out on
making
the
the playoffs.
I'm out on the season for the regard there's going to be no postseason.
Sure.
I think there are still reasons to watch the team for sure. I think that, yeah, they are going to promote guys. We are going to see some of those guys from AAA come up. I think for sure, right? I don't know how many, but at least a couple.
In a way, it's not exactly the same, but you think about like the later parts of that 2014 season when you first started to see some of those guys from the farm system come up and begin, you know, that's when they got their chances to test themselves against major league pitching for somewhat of an extended period of time. This could be a similar kind of opportunity for some of these farm system guys that we've been talking about for a while here in August and September of this year, where, okay, you're not going to contend, or you're not going to make a chase at the wild card, but yeah, I think your point is like that's something to keep watching for. You still have a reason to watch this team, follow what they're doing, because the success of those players maybe in August and September now, that's the stuff that's going to help them 2025, 26, that sort of thing.
I generally agree that, yeah, the season is like, quote unquote, over, but I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to look at the standings and I'm going to see that last wild card spot's still available. Whether you care about it or not is up to you. I could give a shit what anyone else thinks. I'm just saying for me, but I agree. Like at this point, it does look like they're going to sell some relievers and probably sell, try and sell like guys like Horner or Tyone, maybe Cody Bellinger, just because like he's taking batting practice and the hair looks good and looks like he can run at least. So he can at least play defense or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, in general though, I mean, it's just same shit, different day, man. Just overall disappointed about everything.
And I want to be clear that the class of prospects that the Cubs had in 2014 was a very special group of players that they had coming up. What they have right now is not the same.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't mean that they're not still potentially good players who potentially are going to impact your major league team in the future. But am I saying that they have Javi Baez and Chris Bryant and all of that waiting in the minor leagues? No, not necessarily. But am I going to want to follow what, maybe Matt Shaw does in the last 2 months? Yeah, for sure.
Nothing guarantees that a top prospect is going to make a better major league player than a next level prospect either. That's one thing that we've learned pretty easily once the core won the World Series and then couldn't take the next step from there and all started to regress. The season, though, alone, this season is about as disappointing as I can remember.
For sure.
They went in right on playing with the margins, like, oh, this team, but I never, while I didn't know that this team was necessarily going to, my expectation was they should win this division. Okay? We're getting ready to go into August. There's 6 games under 500. They're in dead last in a bad division. They're 5-8 against the Brewers. And they've had good pitching, but good starting pitching, but everything else has gone wrong. It's like the football coach. It's like, well, we couldn't run ball, we couldn't pass the ball, we didn't get any turnovers, but other than that, we had a chance to win this game, And that's how you feel going into this. It's like, well, we had good starting pitching. We couldn't play defense. We couldn't run the bases. We couldn't get timely hitting. Nobody can hit a home run, but other than that, we were close to winning the series. Yeah, you were, but you really weren't too.
Right.
That's just how it starts to feel. It's like every game is the same. And while I agree, we'll still be watching the rest of the season to see what happens because, we're part sicko, part baseball fan, which can be the same thing. It's like I never expected the season to be this disappointing.
Yeah.
For me personally, I never envisioned it being this bad. If you would have told me they're going to be in last going into August, I would have said, come on.
Yeah.
In this division, last place, come on. That's where they are.
They've been flip-flopping with the Reds the last couple of days. But, yeah, I mean.
They're one of the 4 worst teams in the National League.
And they have a $230 million payroll, which doesn't look good. Whether, like I say all the time, I could care less about Tom Ricketts' money and how much money they're spending. But, at the same time, you have a $230 million payroll in your last place. Jed Hoyer is known for having the term intelligent spending or using the term intelligent spending. And we have a $230 million payroll, and
it's hard to call.
We're in last place. So, it's just, to me, I said this, I don't know, probably it feels like at least 3 weeks ago now. This is the most disappointing Cubs team probably the last 10 years. I would argue it's the most disappointing Cubs team in my adult life. I turned 18 in 2009. So, I think we talked about it, maybe 2019 ranks up there higher because there were higher expectations. But, I entered this season with just expectations to make the playoffs, man. I didn't even ask for the division. I just asked to make the playoffs. I would have been completely fine with getting the last wild card spot.
I think.
You know what I mean? And, I feel like individually players have taken steps forwards, but the team hasn't. And that's why it's hard for me to even grade Jed Hoyer on any kind of level. I can't give you a letter grade because most people would say F, but he's also he signed Shota Imanaga. He signed Jamison Tyone. He traded for Ben Brown. It
seems like he does a better job with pitching.
Right.
For sure.
And I know Bellinger's had a down year this year. He's been hurt twice, but getting him on the prove it deal and resurrecting his career last year, that was a good move. It led to the entire fan base chanting his name at Cubs convention because the fan base wanted him back. I could go off the list, keep going on certain players that have done well, and there's just the bottom line is it hasn't led to winning, and that's the biggest thing. You have to win, and they just aren't.
They are not winning. I can tell you where you can win, and that would be our friends at Circa Sportsbook. Tight, money line, splits. If that doesn't send goosebumps running up your arm, I don't know what would. Games will strive to be at a minus 110 split on Circa Sports menu, unlike other sports books, which use a minus 115 or 120 splits. Circa Sports keeps as little money as possible on large market bets like futures, golf tournaments, etc., especially compared to the other books out there. Circa does not limit players based on their winnings. Good for Cody. Every other player has the same limits, unlike other books who try to limit winning players. In fact, they encourage bettors to download and explore all sports betting apps available. Go ahead and compare those lines from each sportsbook. See what you find out. And it's the customer service that also puts them over the top. Real people behind the Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other books who use chatbots. Are you kidding me? And all aspects of the app are being run by the same team that run the main Circa Sportsbook at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, where Matt Peck, sun's out, guns out. He's out at the pool, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Cocktail in hand. That's where he's at all day long.
And Big Dave.
Download, and Bill, yeah, Big Dave too. Big Dave just floating around in one of those, he's got the floaties on his arms.
Mm-hmm.
Cocktail in the hand. Joey too? You do that too? Big Dave is at the end of our show, yeah. All city like the mayor. Download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, tailgates. We got all kinds of parties. They're with us for all the Cubs Friday 120s. And if you know someone that may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areyoureallywinning.com.
Choose Ray Chevrolet as your first draft pick and find the right new Chevy and price for you, Luke. Visit our partner this July to shop the Freedom to Save sales event going on all month long as their location on Route 12 in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. Plus, find the perfect tailgate vehicle right now. Get $12,000 off MSRP on the new 2024 Chevrolet Silverado or lease the new 2024 Chevy Trax for only $188 a month for 24 months. Or cruise into July your own way and shop over 125 of their vehicles priced under $20,000. And if you've heard of Ray Chevrolet, then you've also heard of Ray's Price Promise. They're guaranteed to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever with no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about now you can expect to see the very same when you shop Ray Chevy in-store or online. Shop the Freedom to Save sales events all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
Yes, and by the way, one of the positives in this Cubs game today was Seiya Suzuki provided the power for today's game presented by the Illinois pork producers. Savor the flavor, savor the gains, and celebrate any occasion by enjoying the best pork produced by Illinois pig farmers. Third inning, Seiya hits his 14th home run of the season. He also had a double in this game. But after that, the power for the Cubs has been missing. They need to get themselves some pork chops in that clubhouse. They need to get themselves a little bacon and sausage in there, get it going, because right now the Cubs have played 6 games since the All-Star break, and including Seiya's home run today, they have a total of 2 home runs. 2 home runs, 6 runs.
Yeah, it's just not good enough.
2 home runs in 6 games?
Yeah.
That seems bad.
It's just not good enough. And I think that there's been so many stretches this year that you can't even count where they've gone through multiple games and they haven't had home runs. I remember they went through that. We were counting. Mike Tauchman had that home run against the Braves back in June, and they went over 2 weeks without hitting a home run. I mean, the lows of this offense have been low, man. And whether you thought that they could break out of it, they didn't. It was a 2-month thing. They showed a little bit of life at the beginning, July, before the All-Star break. But everything you've seen in these last 2 series really just encapsulates what this offense is and what the identity of these hitters are. And I think that while they're talented players, Luke, you said this in the watch along. There's Jared, you did too. There's a lot of these guys are good baseball players. Where nobody's saying they're bad baseball players. There's just too much of the single identity type of hitter. There's not enough diversity in the lineup.
Same thing. Yeah.
Too much of the same thing. Too many of the players and the type of approach. It's just something has to change. Jed Hoyer's not going to lose his job after this year. He's going to be the president of baseball operations next year. But I do think that there needs to be a switch up in how they go about evaluating and trying to find hitting next year. Because you cannot roll out a team next year with a similar lineup like this and maybe one or two guys from AAA expecting to take the leap. That cannot be the answer. And I'm worried that is going to be the answer. It can't be. It can't be.
We talked about a ton, man. Like my thought on why there's the lack of power. You've mentioned it before.
You got to pay for it. Yeah.
In general, to me that they haven't hit a lot of home runs is this team is terrible against fastballs, man. Yeah. How many times do we sit here and we see balls in the zone, fastballs in the zone?
Take that ninth
whether they're even in the middle of the zone
or not. Yeah, it summed it all up.
95 mile an hour fastball, right in the heart of the strike zone.
And he's historically a great fastball hitter.
Right.
I don't get it. I can't explain it. What's he looking for? It seems like all of them are just late on it. They're not looking for it. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what they're thinking. Are they putting too much pressure on themselves because the offense is struggling? I mean,
I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah.
There's got to be a little bit of that when
crazy.
You are struggling to score, and sometimes what starts to happen with hitters is they try to do something a little bit different to help with that offensive production. Mm-hmm. Whether it's where you see Christopher Morel, like we talked about in the watch long, his expanding his zone even more for somebody who's already, his zone is probably a little too big anyway, but it gets even more free swinging than he normally would be. You see some of those kinds of things, or like that spot where Nico Horner came up and there's runners on second and third with 2 outs, and he swings at a pretty bad pitch that's kind of out of the zone, and you see him visibly frustrated about it. I think you're seeing that where it's like guys are making some poor decisions and swinging at pitches they wouldn't normally swing at, and those types of things, because there's a little bit of pressure to feel like we've got to make something happen here. These runs are hard to come by. Here's an opportunity. There's a runner right there, and they get up in their head too much about it, whatever it is.
I've said this about a lot of White Sox players like Luis Robert, Garrett Crochet, and other guys that have come through there, that when they leave the Sox, they will go somewhere and they will be better. And I feel like a lot of these guys, if say they move on from Nico, I wouldn't be surprised if he went somewhere and played more like last year the rest of his career. And I say this because it goes back to what Kevin was saying, the way the roster is constructed, the way they put the lineup together, they're asking these guys to do things that they're just not accustomed to doing. Now, at the same time, in my opinion, Nico has regressed this year. Mm-hmm. He was top 10 in baseball in total hits last year. He leads this team in hits, but that's not a good thing whenever he has an OPS under 700. Okay?
Who's regressed?
Let's go through the list. Dansby, Nico.
Yep.
Bellinger, even though he's not playing, but he's
Morel
regressed.
for sure.
Morel. Yes.
Amaya.
Outside of his hot stretch over the last 2 weeks. Yes.
Seiya's definitely regressed too.
I would not agree with Seiya.
Defensively, he's regressed.
Okay, defensively, Seiya's regressed. The only player who's actually kind of taken a step forward or improved is Ian Happ. And that's only because he's slugging this year. He has almost 20 home runs, and we're not even in August yet. And last 2 years, he's hit 20 home runs. He's ended the season with 20 home runs. You know what I mean?
I think it's important for people to understand that there's a difference between an offense that's bad because you have bad players. And I want to make sure that people understand that's not what we're saying.
No.
What we're saying is this is about roster construction. Yes. This is about the mixture of the players that you have. Because we said it during the watch along, you said it just now. So I want to make sure that people understand that this isn't about having a bunch of bad players. You have too many players who are very similar to each other, or or who have similar weaknesses, strengths, whatever, and that there are gaps in what your offense can do that you don't have the players who can fill in those gaps. They're not there. So what that does is that creates a lineup like what you see that really struggles to score. And it can look like, if you're watching the results, you can look like, oh, these guys stink. These guys are all terrible. I don't think that's necessarily the case. The same goes for, if I take Nico Horner and he goes to another team and he does better, it's not because that other team is better at development or something like that. It's because he's probably going to go to a lineup where he can hit more like Nico Horner as opposed to trying to do that plus so many other things.
And put him on the Dodgers and see how much he impacts a playoff game. Well, you'll just be, oh, wow, Nico Horner again came through. Nico Horner came through. You would, but it's the players around him.
People will use that, though, to say, oh, well, the Cubs can't develop players. I don't think that's necessarily true.
No.
I think it's roster construction. I'll use, maybe like to think about it in different ways, since our Bulls guys are sitting right over there. Derrick Rose is one of my most favorite players of all time. But if I send 5 Derrick Roses onto the court, how many teams are you going to beat?
Not very many. Well, just all you have to do is look at the middle of their infield, straight up the middle. Talk about defense up the middle. Dansby and Nico, I thought would be a matchup for 7. That'd be a pair for 7 years right there. I also thought Nico would start to get a little more power, and I thought Dansby would stick around the 25 to 30 home run, in there somewhere. Thought that might happen. But when you have contact, good defensive player, contact, but not a lot of power, you have that in center field with PCA. You have that at short with Dansby. You have it second with Nico. You're getting it behind the plate with Amaya. You just went up half your team, and all those guys have similar, not identical, but similar profiles. And the thing that stands out is the asterisk. Home runs. The home runs, power's not there. What did they do well when they were playing that hot streak against the Orioles?
Hitting the ball out of the park.
Hit home runs. What are they doing since the All-Star break? No home runs. Yeah. It changes the whole team. It's why we say, can a guy like Juan Soto, or can a guy like Ohtani, or can a guy like Aaron Judge, whoever that player might be, one of the superstars with power, can they change a lineup? Yes, but I don't know how the Cubs will end up getting one of those players unless they develop that player themselves. Or they're going to have to trim tons of money right now, and then they're going to have to throw so much money at Soto that he's willing to be like, yeah, I don't want to be in New York. I'd like to go to Chicago. Right. And people will say he's overpaid. I guarantee it, but that's what they may have to do to go get a player that can change their lineup, because it's not the rotation. You can go ahead and trade Tyone, but if you trade Tyone, then you got to worry about replacing 2, maybe 3 starters next year, and then you have no money left to go ahead and fix your lineup, which is the real problem. So you better be real creative when you're taking those chess pieces and moving the pawns around and all those things. You better know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a tedious process, right?
But you've got to be 2 steps ahead of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You have to. You can't just make it and then think, all right, now what we should do. You've got to be thinking, this move makes this move, and if we can make that move, the 3 help us in one way.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're capable of doing it. I don't know how they're going to find that power hitter. I don't know if that guy's Owen Casey, but I wouldn't count on that guy being Owen Casey immediately.
Well, we know that Jed's not going to stand pat, right? He didn't do it in 20. He's going to move some guys around. I don't know if he's going to move. I don't know if there's going to be multiple trades, but you're going to see at least 1 or 2 here.
Well, that's another reason why I kind of said what I said at the beginning of the show. Like, yeah, I think they're going to move some pieces, but I don't think they're going to send like 7 guys out off the roster.
Because you're selling low on a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like the highest value is probably your.
But the shedding payroll thing is that's something they have to do.
Important.
They have to do so that they can add payroll for the right players. Yes. The problem isn't that they haven't spent. They spent $227 million. I would like to see $300 million, but $227 million, they've spent some of that on the wrong players. In fact, some of the guys aren't even on the team. I'll tell you what's always on my team. It's an easy one. You know where I go? Pork. Grilling season. Get your pork. People who are active need more protein than the average American. In fact, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and Dietitians of Canada and the American College of Sports Medicine, all of them recommend 1.2 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day for athletes. Now, one 3-ounce serving of pork provides 23 grams of high-quality protein that can help activate active individuals.
There you go.
Build and preserve muscle. The International Society of Sports Nutrition recommends that people who are involved in a general fitness program who are interested in optimizing their health. So, maybe the four of us, we're not super athletes, but we'd like to, we should be eating lean cuts of pork. We've had our guy grilling with Dad here. He was a lot of fun. Elevate your protein game with lean pork, a powerhouse of natural goodness. Savor the flavor, savor the gains, and celebrate any occasion by enjoying the best pork produced by Illinois pig farmers. From your sausage and bacon for breakfast to pulled pork and juicy chops hot off the grill. It's an entire season dedicated to pork and the people behind the product, paid for by the Illinois pork producers. Generations of commitment. See, I got messed up. I don't have enough pork in my system.
Well, you know what? You might need to
chops.
wash down some of that pork, or maybe wash away a frustrating Cubs loss is a little Penrose Seltzer. Penrose Seltzer comes from Penrose Brewing in beautiful Geneva, Illinois, out there right on the Fox River. At Penrose, you can get their Seltz-Ups, which are hard seltzers with real fruit, led by Lemon Seltz-Up, a national gold medal winning hard seltzer with real lemons. They created our unique twist on a lemon shake-up with a house-made hard seltzer and pureed lemons for a throwback to warm weather and county fairs. Also available is the Lemon Tea-Up, a half and half inspired hard seltzer. And just released this year is the Transfusion Seltz-Up, which is inspired by a popular golf cocktail with grape, ginger, and lime. That's a great combo. Penrose is available at your local beverage retailer, or I highly encourage you to go to Penrose's tap room there in Geneva. It's a great spot, great place to spend it, a summer afternoon or summer evening. For more information, go to penrosebrewing.com or follow them on social media at Penrose Brewing.
Has the I don't want to say hate level. Hate's a way too used phrase.
Distaste?
Has the frustration with Dansby Swanson in the fan base that you talk to, Cody, when you go out and you're having, good time in Wrigleyville, you're over at Sluggers, you're over at Murphy's, the Friday 120 Club. In the chat, it seems like a lot of times it is reaching Jason Hayward level. I don't compare the two deals at all because for the first year, last year, he was the best deal of all those shortstops. He's not a $300 million contract. He's not a 10-year deal. Like, they're still waiting for Xander Bogaerts to be that guy consistently. Now, may he turn out to be the worst deal of that group of shortstops that we said they desperately had to have one guy? Are you disappointed in what you've got? And at what point would you say, man, what a bust of a signing. I wish they hadn't signed any of the shortstops in that group. Because that's a tough thing to say. Nico was your shortstop. You still wouldn't be getting power at that position. And then I don't know what you'd be doing at second base. Like, it's, I don't think it's Hayward, but a lot of the name that's being connected to it right now, because they're two big deals.
Today, yeah.
You'll see. I see it and hear it all the time. He's Hayward. He's Hayward 2.0.
Right. I've said this 1,000 times at this point. Like, if you're a fan who had expectations of Dansby Swanson being a elite hitter for the Cubs, like, you're just setting yourself up to be pissed, because he wasn't even that with the Braves. When they won the World Series in 2021, he was hitting at the bottom of the lineup just like he is with the Cubs now. The Cubs signed him as a defensive shortstop first. But the thing that disappoints me about Swanson is that he hasn't been even a league average hitter. He has a WRC plus below league average. That's my biggest thing. Hitting 211 or whatever, it's not great. I in some aspects I look at that because I know that he's not getting hits, right? His slugging percentage is under 400. His on-base percentage isn't good. Like, it's all bad, right? Like, it's not even just the WRC plus, but the WRC plus is the easiest, advanced stat to look at to define a good offensive player. That's why I said earlier that Ian Happ is having one of his best seasons, because he's been sitting around 130 to 140 the last 2.5 months, which is a career high for him, right? with Swanson, all I ask is for him to be a league average hitter and give you a lead defense. That's all I ask. But the reason that fans in the YouTube chat are bitching about his offense and all that is because I think it's an overall frustration with the team in general with the lack of offense. And he's one of the highest paid players on the team.
It makes
so
him
whenever things aren't going well, you're looking at, all right, well, who's getting paid the most?
Yeah.
So, like, I don't blame fans. Am I sitting here and I'm saying that I'm not frustrated by it? No, I'm obviously frustrated by it. They need Swanson to play better, especially when Bellinger is out and especially when other guys are underperforming. Like he says all these things about, like, when he got signed, when we had Kelly Kroll on this podcast, when she still worked for Bally in Atlanta, came on here, talked to us about how he's a leader, and like they call him they called him like the sheriff or whatever down there in Atlanta, Lieutenant Dan's, like all these things, like he's the leader in the clubhouse. There's no possible way that he could be acting like a leader in this clubhouse right now with the way that he's playing, because that, like, you want to say this guy's Jason Hayward. Dude, Jason Hayward hit better than this, even in his worst years with the Cubs. Well, at the beginning, at least. In his last couple years, whatever. Maybe not that bad. But, like, Dansby's been so bad that Hayward's offense is looking better than his, in my opinion. All right? His biggest problem, career high in ground ball rate. He pulls the ball too much. He's been trying to shoot the ball to the opposite field a lot more, and we've seen a handful of more hits of late. That hot streak before the All-Star break, he actually did play well. It's just for you look at it the entire season, it just hasn't been there.
And nothing has been there for him, though, right?
The only, like, I don't know what else to say. It goes back to roster construction, too. Like, the front office legitimately signed the guy, and we're like, we went into 2023 with low expectations, so I let it pass. But then you go into last offseason, and you still entered this season trying to use Dansby Swanson as someone that is going to generate runs for you. That's all, like, sure, he's got to play better individually. He can't hit 211, but I don't know how this front office could look me in the eyes and tell me that they believed that he was going to take a step offensively or anything after last year. If you get what you got in year one from Dansby Swanson every single year, and you had some star power in the lineup, no one would talk about Dansby's offense, man. It's like I said the other day or yesterday, when we were talking about the Phillies. Nick Castellanos has a minus WAR right now. He hasn't had a good year, but no one talks about it because the Phillies are the best team in the National League, and they have stars who are carrying that offense. And he'll hit a homer occasionally, and he'll do what he does. No one's talking about how Nick Castellanos has been terrible for the Phillies this year, but they're winning because they have other good players doing shit. This organization legitimately thought, oh, Dansby is going to be like an offensive force for us. Well, that's stupid.
I'm looking at it right now. Take Dansby's numbers from last year. So he had a .744 OPS.
Yes.
He had a 328 on base percentage. So his OPS is over 100 points lower than what it was last year. His on base percentage is 40 points lower. And we don't even need to get into power. He had 22 homers last year. Would you take a shortstop who hits 22 homers, has 80 RBI, and gets on base 33% of the time
and wins a Gold Glove?
Yeah, and wins a Gold Glove. That's beautiful.
Yes, I would.
But when almost all of that goes away, minus the defense, compared to this year, he's on pace to hit. He has 9 home runs, but I don't know how many more point being, like, the numbers have dropped off significantly this season. Over the course of his career, this is, other than like at the very beginning of his career, this is the lowest OPS he has ever posted, like by a lot. So this is a guy who in his career has had consistently OPS, 760, 776, 747, not like, phenomenal, going to lead the offense, to your point, but like solid, good, reliable. That's all Dansby Swanson needs to be. Like you're saying, hit for league average, and that's all you need. But
even last year, he was better than league average. He was like a 120 WRC plus last year. He was so bad at the beginning of the year, though, that like going to the All-Star break after that stretch, I was like, okay, well, if he can have numbers at league average levels while still giving you a really solid defense, I can let it go. But to me, the whole reason that he is struggling this year is the ground ball rate, pulling the ball too much. And I don't know, man. You struggled for as long as you have. It starts to get in your head. Maybe, and who knows? Maybe they're one of the knee, the leg issue, whatever. Maybe that's the thing, and he's just out there trying to get through it or whatever. And I don't know, man. Like
it could be one of those things that you find out at the end of the year, and maybe we won't find out. I don't know. This is pure speculation.
No one's going to want to hear it.
Maybe he got scoped during that couple weeks that he was off. Maybe he got scoped. I don't know. Yeah. But his knee was clearly a problem. And obviously, it's you need it to play in the field and hit the baseball. I mean, obviously, you need that. And he decided to play through it, and maybe he made it worse. Those are all things we might not find our answers to. But if we did find out, come December, season's over, and it pops up in an Athletic article or an ESPN article, like, oh, Dansby. Yeah, he decided to have a mid-season little scope on his knee, or after the season, he goes, hey, it's still bothering me. I need to have surgery. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest because you're right. The numbers are so jarring and they're so low.
It's out of character.
You're right. His back of the baseball card says that, everyone's due for a little sway and a little regression and a little overplaying every once in a while, but the way that he's played this year has just been so pathetic at the plate. I mean, it's really been – to the point where you wonder what
it feels like there's got to be something going on. In a way that might be not for this year, but encouraging maybe for next season is, if you do find out that he either got scoped or is going to need to do some off-season surgery, I think that there's optimism for next year that, okay, we've identified what the problem was or what the most likely problem was. If you can fix that, then 2025 looks a lot better. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not that, I'll take a guy who's a 7-year veteran who, for whatever reason, is having a down year. Do I think this is like the end of Dansby Swanson's ability to hit?
No,
most definitely not. So maybe it's just he's just having a bad year, and look at any player, and there's just here and there they have seasons that just don't go very well.
If it's not what Kevin was saying though, like the scope, which is a possibility, and Cody said too, then it is more alarming to me because if you take his last year and you say, what did he hit, 25 home runs, and then it regresses a little bit, but still was a good year last year.
Is this a trajectory? Yeah.
Are we watching a steady or sometimes fast decline in a player as he gets older? That's the real fear, right? Like if he can do this for 7 years and play great defense, then you could kind of live with that. Some years aren't as good as others. Other years are better. But if it's starting here with Atlanta and then it's here and it's going, that's more scary because then that's also a player that you can't deal, that you don't know what to do with, and you hope he's a leader and does some other things. But that, to me, that's the bigger fear. If there isn't something wrong with his leg and his knee, then I'm more concerned going into next year.
I'm not. Your theory, it could certainly be right.
And that's all this is, by the way.
Oh,
it's
sure.
a complete theory. This is not.
But a lot of people have said that. Everybody said it. Like, listen, they've said it in the broadcast. JD has pointed out, like,
he's not right. Something is not right.
His leg doesn't, allow him to hit with that power potentially. So, but if it's not that, then we have a bigger problem.
But at the end of the day, the biggest problem to me is it has nothing to do with Swanson. It has everything to do with the front office legitimately putting this roster together and asking Swanson to be a run producer of some sorts. That's legitimately how they do it, or else we wouldn't be sitting here talking about his off. Like, I know the offense this year has been really bad for him, but if there were other guys producing in the middle of the lineup like they need that aren't named Michael Busch or Ian Happ, we would not be talking nearly as much about Swanson struggling on offense. Absolutely not. If Horner was performing like he did last year, like, I know, Brendan, if you're listening to this, I know you hate me for this, but like, to me, he significantly regressed from last year, man. Like, this guy was he was top 10 in hits total last year. The only pro is that his walk rate's gone up a little bit, but like, and then we've sat here for 3 years thinking, Luke, you even said it. We've sat here for 3 years thinking that maybe the power could raise. And me and Ryan were in Arizona for spring training. We were watching this guy take batting practice. The dude looked like the swing was different. I don't know what he's trying to do. He's had some hot stretches, like up until like yesterday or today, like he actually was on a decent stretch, but it hasn't been consistent. It's either been bad or it's been good. And like going to the All-Star break, OPS under 700, man. Like if you're trying to swing, you're trying to change your swing more to slug more, and you're entering the All-Star break with an OPS under 700, I'm sorry, ain't going to get done.
Yeah, it's a philosophy thing, right? Like I think that is, if we can say nothing else, it's that some of these guys and whatever their offensive philosophy is in the front office, something's got to flip.
Yeah.
I don't know. Blaming the hitting coach is the easiest play in the book, so I'm not going to do that.
They do that every year.
Right, yeah, and that's the easiest play in the book, and that's clearly not – it's deeper than that. We've had the Jed Hoyer experience for a few years now. We know that it's more than just that. Nico, if he did change his swing, and it does look like he's made some – it does look like he's flipped a few things around.
Yeah.
I would like him to revert back.
Right.
I would like him to go back to the way it was. And I don't know if he will.
And like I said with Swanson, he's the same thing. Like Horner and Swanson, their value mostly should be coming from defense. And their offense, if they're a 100 to 120 WRC plus, somewhere in that range, that's fine.
Yeah, that's who they are.
But neither one of them have been that this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it to me, it really does just go back to roster construction. And, you know, if there's, you know, any disappointments in some ways, it's like, you know, Bellinger just not slugging more because that's what he's paid to do. You know, Seiya not taking the leap that we hoped he would. He's still a good player, but he's not like we were expecting more, even though there's nothing that shows that we should expect that except of what he did in Japan. You know, like, and I honestly think that all of these things I just said, like, you can blame the front office for this, man. Like, they put the roster together.
Yeah, and that's where I think you kind of have to look and say, you know, we talk a lot about their total payroll, and they've got one of the highest payrolls in the league. They're certainly spending the money, and that's where I think you have to look at, okay, who it is that's in charge of spending that money, who it is that's deciding where, how much, you know, which people, that sort of thing. That's where at some point, you know, there's a lot of your criticism has to fall. I know in previous episodes we talked about Craig Counsell and, you know, some of the criticism that he's getting, but I don't even know that he's somebody that I would point a finger at just yet. I think it's about, can you look at the roster construction of this team over the last couple of years and say they have done the best job possible of assembling a roster that can win? Clearly you can't say that. It's not the case.
Yeah, the answer is no. Now, one of the bright spots at Wrigley Field today was that Cole Kmet, Bears star tight end, was at Wrigley Field throughout the first pitch wearing CHGO gear.
He had his jersey button, but
we saw it before the game. It was open. I saw photos.
In his interview with Taylor McGregor.
Awesome. Yeah.
CHGO gear. Now we get Ryan Herrera, another, you know, star player, obviously, on our softball team. There he is.
I'm giving him that.
In CHGO
I can't even say it without coughing. Star player. Star slugger.
Another Northwest Suburbs guy.
CHGO gear. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That is true. Ryan, what did Craig Counsell have to say after this? Did he attack any reporters? Was anybody
any
did he
bad
attack
take?
you?
Any bad takes out there?
Did Jesse give
you
a bad take this time? Who had the bad
take?
takes?
So we can talk about it.
No bad takes today. I mean, asked to sum up the homestand, which they've lost they lost 4 of the 6 games, lost both series. Asked to sum up the homestand, he said, "We pitched well, we didn't score enough runs." Very very thoughtful answer, but no, he very easily summed up the homestand. Is they had good pitching. They had good pitching again today. Didn't score, and it's the same story was yesterday. Same story it's basically been since the All-Star break ended. Yeah, it's hard to win games and do what they want to do when, you know, they're not scoring any runs, and that's just kind of basically where whatever Craig Counsell says, Justin Steele pitched well in his mind, bullpen pitched well, all that stuff. Everything comes back down to the offense and didn't get anything going, didn't put any pressure on the opposing pitcher. They managed to get to the opener. Rob, I still don't remember how to say his last name. It's a tough one, but he is a Mizzou guy. So I should know better. But got to him, but then just didn't do anything else against the rest of the Brewers staff that pitched today, and that's the end of it.
They couldn't hit a bunch of former Cubs. Literally all series, it was like a parade of former Cubs pitchers that have come through the system, throwing against the Cubs, and they couldn't hit them.
That's the underlying thing about this game, though, right? This was a bullpen game for the Brewers. A bullpen game.
And they held him
and
to 2 runs.
Against Steele.
2 runs.
Yeah.
And you got 2 runs off a bullpen that is pretty decent. But come on, man. I mean, that just sums up their offensive identity.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't hit a bullpen. I mean,
like we've been talking about. It seems really clear what the problem with the team is, what the weak spot is. The bigger question at the trade deadline going into the second half of this season and the next year is, how are they going to address that? Do you think that the right person is in charge of trying to address that? I think that's, those are like the big questions for sure. Ryan, were any of the hitters in there afterward that could give some insight as to what was going on with the guys after Zastryzny?
Zastryzny.
That is a hard one.
Zastryzny, right? Yeah.
Zastryzny.
Rob Z. I'll just call him Rob Z.
Big Z.
No, I don't want to butcher it. No, I mean, like we talked to a couple guys, and obviously Suzuki, one of them, hit the home run today. Obviously, he had a decent day at the plate, 2 for 4. I don't know if there's like any evaluating, right? Like they didn't get hits. Like at the end of it, like they didn't get hits. Whatever pitchers, whoever they threw out there, and that's gone on throughout the whole series. The Cubs weren't able to take advantage of them, and again, it's kind of been the common theme for throughout the season, and it's obviously like I think you could say like the guys are frustrated and feel like Tyone said last night, and obviously he's a pitcher, but it's just like as overall as a team, like they don't think that what Tyone said was like they know they haven't played the way they should have been playing, but at the end of the day, like whatever you say doesn't matter as much as what you do on the field. So you could say you feel like you're a better team than you are, but until you prove it on the field, you can't really say that anymore. So yeah, it's to your question, it's just like there's really no like evaluating. It's hard to evaluate the offense when it's just like no matter who is out there, they're not stringing together hits and putting together rallies and stuff like that. It's just all these pitchers are different, but the outcome is still pretty much the same.
Which I think is, illustrates the fact that the issue isn't who they're facing; it's the hitters on the Cubs lineup.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a positive, Ryan, after Steele, like you said, it was the pitching, but it wasn't just Steele. You went Miller, Hodge, Leiter, 2 2/3, no earned runs. Like those guys continue to look better in the bullpen. Some of the young guys start to look better in the bullpen. I don't know if you can turn it into a strength the last 50 games of the season and hope that bleeds into next season. I don't know where to put it. All I know is I've watched Hector Neris all season, and I don't think there's going to be a ton of teams begging to get him. But if you can find one, you take whatever you can get. That's how I feel. Like now it's time to let the young guys play. We said it, like I'm sure PCA took a day off today because of the matchup, and he hasn't looked good. I don't know if Counsell talked about that, but man, it is time to watch the young guys play while still trying to hover around whatever hope you might have for that wild card. Do you think that they can make this bullpen significant, even when they might have to subtract some of the guys? Could it still be a strength late in the season, the last 50 games?
I guess the expectation is like Mark Leiter Jr. I tweeted that out. Like he's been perfect since he came back from the injured list. 6 outings, hasn't given up a hit or a walk. Like that's someone it seems like they're probably going to lose from that bullpen. That's hard to replace a guy like that. That's at least like in season that's been performing very well. That you have to find, obviously, guys that replace that. I mean, that's a tough question until we see it happen. I mean, Porter Hodge has been pitching pretty well since he came up. Hunter Biggie, like, I'm sure he'll be back, and he's going to have to find the consistency there at the major league level. Luke Little's a young guy that was starting to carve out a role, and now he's done for the year. So it seems like, obviously, there's going to be some young guys that are going to have to step up. Merriweather just came back. Maybe he's someone that is moved at the deadline, but maybe not, and he can help in that bullpen. And Adbert Alzolay is still a little bit away, but he's making rehab appearances. He's going to go to an affiliate for his next outing on Saturday, and he's obviously been out for a while, and he struggled before that, but maybe he's someone that can help stabilize the bullpen later on, a couple weeks from now. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question to answer until it actually happens, because you are likely trading away at least a couple, 2-3 of those key arms in the bullpen that have been key in turning this season or turning the bullpen's performances around. So that's obviously something that Craig Counsell is going to have to figure out. But then, like you said, it's like time for the young guys to play. I don't necessarily think that that's exactly what's going to happen. Because I think we can expect if they had a bunch of their key players were on expiring deals, easier to move, that kind of stuff, and no trade clauses, like, then you probably get to a situation like you did in 21 and 22, where the young guys were playing mostly throughout the field. This season, I don't expect the roster to look completely different after the trade deadline. The bullpen is one area where it will, but like, I don't know that you'll see just overall young guys playing once the trade deadline passes. I think you may still see. I think you'll see a little bit more time given to those young guys, but I expect Craig Counsell's still going to want to win. These players are still going to want to win, and they're going to, with no additions coming in, they're going to try to do that with who they have now, and whether that is young guys or not. I think the goal is still to win for the guys on the team. Front office may be focused on the next season, but I don't expect the players and coaches to be giving up on the season next week.
Ryan, quick thing, switching gears in a slight way, still talking trades and talking about how the team makeup could look a little bit different here, and it's going to look a little bit different in the next week or so. Justin Steele pitched pretty well today. Not his best stuff, but still, very good. What did he have to say about some of these rumors? Is he frustrated? Can you sense frustration, or is he just kind of still calm, cool, and collected, Justin Steele, after an outing, or did he express any frustration at all?
I mean, I don't think he expressed much frustration. A lot, obviously, with today's outing, a lot of talk about that first inning. A few things didn't go his way, managed to get out of it with a run, and then how he, just tries to, obviously, focus, breathe, like, get over the frustration of that first inning and kind of lock back in, which he was able to do after getting out of that inning with the one. As far as the trade rumors, like, he says he doesn't pay attention to that stuff. I think his quote was like the only GMing he does is with a couple of fantasy football teams. Like that's as far as he goes with GMing. But so I mean, one, I don't expect him to be traded on Tuesday. I think that's something, if Jed Hoyer's focused on competing in 2025, giving up an ace pitcher under team control doesn't really seem to jive with that. But Steele himself kind of was just brushed him off, says he doesn't really pay attention or know about any of that kind of stuff, and just goes out there and focuses on what he has to do whenever he takes the ball.
Over 10.5 touchdowns. He told me himself.
Derrick Henry over 10.5. I mean, Derrick Henry's in a high-octane running offense.
He knows his football, man.
Baltimore.
He knows his football. I assume he'll have Derrick Henry on his fantasy team this year.
Yeah, I don't think Justin Steele's getting traded either, so I'm not worried about it. I would be frustrated if I was him and how great he's pitched again this year, and it's back-to-back seasons that essentially you're likely you're not mathematically eliminated, but it's very likely you're going to be on the outside looking in again when he's been so good. I mean, if the roles were reversed and I was Justin Steele, I'd be pretty frustrated. So kudos to him for being able to keep it together.
I'm not saying he's not frustrated.
No.
I would say
he
in
holds it
media
in.
scrums and stuff, like to the media, he's not expressing a bunch of frustration in that way.
He's not going to show it in that context. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, look at what happened in Milwaukee. Like when he's yelling at the
It's
dugout
there.
to wake up. I'm not saying that there for sure is blow-ups in the clubhouse or anything like that. Like outside of the media, I'm just saying if he's really frustrated, it's not something he expresses when he's talking to us. I think he's more like introspective and like cool, calm and collected, like you said, when he's in that situation.
There hasn't been a "we stinks" rant by anybody just yet in the media, but it's percolating because that pitching staff
They won't let me in there.
It's just like an offense or a defense in any other sport where you're scoring lots of touchdowns, but they can't hold them, or vice versa. You know, the defense is great and you can't score anything. We're human. You got to look the other side every once in a while and be like, come on, guys, let's go. Help me out here. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's, I'm not saying they don't get along in the clubhouse, but we can get along and still argue about stuff. Professional athletes will argue. So we'll see what happens. They got a day off to think about it. Then they can start rebuilding the hope that Cody is hanging on to. He told us at the beginning he's going to watch the end of this season. He's not.
He's in.
He said he wasn't
under yet.
Yeah,
We're not 10 games under.
10 games.
I
under.
said 10 games under, brother. I am a man of integrity. No one has more integrity here than me. I have more integrity than Ryan. He's a reporter. Okay, I'm not letting go until we reach the mark. Okay.
I think I'm supposed to take that as a slight against me.
Ryan, what's your opinion on handkerchiefs?
Yeah, we talked about it. This is the last thing, but we talked about it on the watch along. You ever seen somebody the old-fashioned way with a handkerchief instead of a Kleenex, and then they just put the booger rag back in their pants?
Yeah, I've seen that before. It seems unhygienic to me. I wouldn't personally.
The King of Elk Grove doesn't do that, right?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Didn't the old-timey people, they'd call it?
Oh, yeah, that was 100% a thing. They didn't want to spend a lot of money on Kleenex, so they just
That's what we were talking about.
had one booger rag that got washed like once a week.
That's like an old school approach.
I knew a kid in middle school who would blow his nose and then put the Kleenex back in his pocket, and I thought that was gross. So a hanky is on another level.
Yeah,
that's arguably even worse because it's disposable. It's meant to be thrown away after you use it, but you're putting it back. That's I
don't like it.
That's worse.
These are the conversations we had during the watch along.
You missed out.
I can believe it. You avoided quick super chats that we may have missed here. The dude has a super chat, $1.99, commiserating with all you guys is therapeutic. Thank you. We had one earlier that I also missed. What was that one, Joey? TJ had a good one, $4.99. Why are so many people down on PCA? He's 22. He needs the time. Craig Counsell looks like a zombie. No fire. Needs to be firing this team up.
Well, TJ,
firing the media up.
That's not his style. He's not going to do that.
He's going to blame the media as his style.
Chat, but you're right about one of those things, but not the other. So PCA, that's a good take.
It's a bad take, TJ. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I didn't say it. Somebody else said it.
Can I quickly address the PCA thing in like 20 seconds here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nope.
He said something on the score yesterday about how his philosophy as a player is whatever he does offensively is a bonus to the Cubs. That is what he's been told by Counsell and Jed both. That
this season,
anything he does offensively is a bonus. Focus solely on defense and base running. While I think that is okay and it's an okay philosophy to have for a young hitter, I would have liked him to say, while that's what they told me and I believe and I trust in them, I still have the fire to want to be a great hitter and I still need to get better at hitting. I didn't hear that necessarily out of the answer he said, and I'm not expressing any frustration about PCA. I think that he's a really good baseball player, and I think he's going to be a very good baseball player. I just would like to see some of the steps and some of the growing and trying to change a little bit in the approach versus going up there free swinging at the first pitch every single time and doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah, if I'm being yes, just you don't have to completely change everyththing right away. You're 22. It's a process, but it seems like he needs to be coached.
The more pitches you see in your year, the better.
It feels like he needs to be coached a little bit more in the offensive category. And right now, That's what he told you. They're not really doing that. His sole focus is to run the bases and play good defense right now. It's not to hit the ball. Those are his words. So I don't know.
What about the other 8 guys?
Yeah.
What
I got
are they
some
telling
I
clap.
hope they didn't tell that to the whole team.
I got some clap back about the Swanson stuff I said earlier.
Uh-huh.
When you asked me about like what should they have done, like if you look at it in hindsight, like we all know Trey Turner was never coming here. Like Trey Turner wanted to go back to the East Coast. He wanted to play with Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Xander Bogaerts literally sat down with the Cubs with John Lester. He decided to go to San Diego. All right, so the Cubs did try to get him, but he's actually been just as bad as Swanson this year, I believe.
And
he's been hurt.
10-year deal,
and
isn't
bad. Yeah, and it's a 10-year, $280 million deal. Whatever. He was good last year. So, I did point out Swanson last year, but Swanson had to hire War because he's a better defensive player. Hell, they already moved Bogaerts off of shortstop in San Diego. They moved him to second base because Ha-Seong Kim is better defensively. I think I said his name right. So I guess that leaves Correa, who had a down year. Last year was like a 2-WAR player, but then this year he's bounced back offensively. All right. I think it's fine that Swanson is the guy out of those 4. If I were to go back in even more hindsight and pick a different shortstop, I would pick Corey Seager. But at that point, it was 2022.
Yeah.
We knew the Cubs were not in position. They could have easily just said, screw it, let's get him now, and he'll be here whenever we're making our come up, But that's the thing. You all have the right to be upset with Swanson. I am upset with Swanson. I'm not even really defending him. I'm just saying anyone who's expecting him to be an elite hitter, you're just setting yourself up to be pissed off because he's never been an elite hitter. He was never an elite hitter with the Braves. He had a couple good years, but those lineups were incredible. He was hitting at 9th in the World Series for a reason. Yeah. So
It always ends with him yelling at me before the show's over. He looks right at me and he yells. All right, Joey's giving us the hook. He says we've been on since 1:20 and it's almost 5:20. He said it's time to go. And so
thanks, Ryan.
Thanks to everybody that was with us. Thank you, Ryan. We got an off-day show tomorrow live at 1:20 right here. So we'll be back to talk more Cubs baseball as they get ready to take on the Royals. We'll see how that goes.
Come in for me?
What's that?
I'll be here tomorrow. I'm producing you guys tomorrow.
Damn it.
Wonderful.
Yep, I will be here tomorrow.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks to everybody in the live chat. And don't forget, fly the W.